to be camping maybe and skiing and doing things like that, so we need something that will carry some equipment.
Very good-looking vehicle. I think Ford has done a very good job on that vehicle.
You know, I would use it probably for grocery shopping and putzing around town. But
room. You got to have a lot of room. It has to be economical. It has to look.
It's not that I couldn't afford it. Why would I want to spend, you know, $12,000, $14,000 on a second car?
The styling, the unique styling. The windshield in the front is really sharp. It's got a nice rake in the back.
Mostly for transportation of the kids, and especially on trips. I think that it's probably much more comfortable than the car I have now. I find that I used to have a station wagon. I have a smaller car now, and when we go on the road for any length of time, it's crowded.
We were by the GM van, and people were commenting how you could not get to the spark plugs, and the engine compartment was very crowded, and the engine itself was really crowded.
Those are actual comments by the kinds of people you're going to be dealing with in the compact van market. They were filmed at an auto show where Ford's Aerostar was on display. As you can see, they can be very demanding consumers. These buyers are well informed and they know what they like. What they want is a little harder to pin down because neither the products nor the compact van market itself existed a few years ago. As recently as 1982, the only compact vans in the market were all imports, which left a lot to be desired in terms of creature comforts, performance, and payload capacity. Yet research indicated there was a strong market potential for a true compact alternative to both conventional family station wagons and full-size vans, which currently represent an owner body of some 4 million units. Now that all 3 major domestic manufacturers have introduced compact van models, nobody really knows how high compact van sales will climb. But at the least, industry-wide, the compact market is expected to account for 500,000 units in 1986. Compact vans should generate more sales dollars than the entire home computer industry in the coming year. And it means that the compact van segment will very likely be the deciding factor in overall truck sales leadership. Clearly, there's a lot at stake in the compact van segment. On the other side of this video disc, you'll find all the product facts needed to make a professional sales presentation on Aerostar. But it's also important to understand what's on the buyers' minds, especially if they've been looking at any of the competitive models on the market. Compact wagon buyers tend to be younger and better educated than full-size club wagon buyers. And in many cases, they are young, suburban families who have simply outgrown their compact or subcompact wagon. They're looking for a multi-purpose first or second vehicle. And as you might expect, very often a woman will be the principal driver. In fact, women influence the purchase decision in nearly half of all the compacts sold. The reason that's so important is that, as a group, women often find a full-size van or club wagon too much vehicle to manage comfortably. Ideally, they'd like something that rides and handles like their old passenger car, but which can provide more total passenger and cargo flexibility. If they seem a little vague about usage, it's probably because they plan on using it for everything. On the other hand, compact van buyers can be very specific about what they need. They may tell you they love their present full-size van, but simply need greater efficiency and lower operating costs. In addition to fuel economy, they're likely to be concerned about a compact's ability to provide the room and payload they need, whether it's built to handle hard work day in and day out, and whether it has the power they require for pulling the load. It may seem a vehicle that can tackle both applications would necessarily represent a compromise at best. Passenger car owners will say they don't want a truck, while truck owners won't settle for anything less. But in fact, what's called for is something entirely different. Convincing prospective buyers that Aerostar is different is the single biggest obstacle Ford salespeople face in the compact market. Because Aerostar was designed from the start to combine the best attributes of both kinds of vehicles without compromise, it can provide important advantages over the other competitors in the compact market. Chrysler's T115 was the first domestic compact on the road, and it's the most successful new product in Chrysler's history. Chrysler makes no apology for slanting it toward the passenger car end of the market, nor should they. The T115 is an efficient, well-built product, and as a people carrier, it's everything most buyers seem to want. But the T115 can't do it all. Its front-wheel drive configuration is not capable of handling heavy cargo or towing heavy trailers. And because the T115 is smaller than Aerostar, it does not offer as much room inside for passengers or cargo. Interestingly enough, GM took just the opposite approach with their new compact. One glance at its styling tells you GM is going after the traditional full-size van market. It not only looks like a Chevy van, but is engineered like one too. The GM Compact is larger all the way around than Aerostar, and it offers the largest displacement optional engine in the segment. Of course, GM buyers will pay a price in fuel economy for that kind of horsepower. And even though it appears more truck-like, the GM Compact actually can't carry more payload or tow heavier trailers than Aerostar. In fact, for about the same price, buyers could get up to 70% more cargo volume than the standard GM Compact van, with similar mileage and payload, by going with a standard Econoline van instead. The reason we've taken a closer look at these competitors is to make the point that all compact vans are not equal. In each case, Aerostar takes the best features of these competitive models one step further to provide buyers with more total versatility. Again, the key is to understand Aerostar's product features well enough to respond to prospects' questions, regardless of which orientation they may be coming from. But precisely because Aerostar is so different from other compact models, you can also expect to encounter questions which are a little more subjective in nature. Remember, this is a new market for the buyers as well, and since Aerostar is the newest entry in the segment, many prospects are likely to be a little confused about exactly where it fits in. As a result, there's probably no vehicle in the Ford lineup where an effective demonstration of product is more important. For the next few minutes, we'd like to take a closer look at some of the broader issues you'll be dealing with in this new market. And perhaps the logical place to start is styling, since that's the first thing most prospects will become aware of. Of course, styling is often a matter of taste, and it can be a difficult thing to deal with objectively. However, there are ways to use Aerostar's distinct styling to your advantage. There's no question that Aerostar looks different than either the T115 or the GM Compact. And because both of those products were on the market earlier than Aerostar, they have tended to establish in the mind of the buyer what a compact van is supposed to look like.
Oh, the styling. I think I have to get used to the way they look. You know, they're not as attractive as a typical car.
I tend to prefer a square-shaped vehicle, and that the slanted front, I think, is what probably disturbs me a little bit.
It's different, altogether different.
Remember, one of the keys to Aerostar's success is to establish its difference. We are trying to give it a separate identity from other compacts to enable you to concentrate on its greater functional flexibility. As a result, Aerostar's different look gives you an excellent place to start making those distinctions. In fact, Aerostar's styling itself provides many functional advantages. It's aerodynamic, which helps contribute to overall efficiency in handling. In fact, Aerostar slips through the wind better than any other van, full-size or compact. Since it doesn't waste a lot of power pushing a wall of air in front of it, Aerostar can get better performance out of smaller engines. But airflow management can also contribute to better handling and lower wind noise at highway speeds. That's an experience full-size van owners will really appreciate. The sloping front hood gives the driver excellent visibility without raising the step height or seating position, which many people find objectionable in a big van. And because the engine is out front, mounted in a conventional manner, it can be easier and less expensive to perform maintenance tasks. Finally, realize that many style-conscious buyers don't want to run with the pack. By presenting Aerostar's styling in a positive way, they may find it makes the kind of personal statement they're looking for. All things considered, styling is only an issue to the extent that the buyer makes it one. But styling's likely to have a greater bearing upon buyers who have looked at the more car-like Chrysler product. And in that case, you may also have to take on the issue of front versus rear-wheel drive. The T115 features front-wheel drive. And while that design doesn't have the magic it once did, many people still believe it will give them better traction and fuel economy. However, while good for many applications and uses, front-wheel drive may not be the ideal system in a compact van application.
I'm happy to see the competition for Chrysler, and I hope that the rear-wheel drive thing that is bothering me in the back of my mind turns out to be nothing to concern myself with.
I think the rear wheel is still a little more durable. A little bit less to go wrong with either end of the vehicle when you separate the drive end from the steering end.
But it would seem to me that I've always thought with the weight being in the front of the car that Voyager would probably be a little better for traction, but that's my opinion.
Initially, where passengers load front to rear, most of the weight of the unloaded van is centered over the front drive wheels. But gradually, more and more of the weight is supported by the rear wheels, which cannot use the weight for traction since they receive no power from the engine. When you add the tongue weight of a trailer, you can actually reach a point where the drive wheels start to unload. Again, that may not concern family wagon buyers interested primarily in a people mover. But for recreational or commercial users who tend to load from the rear forward, Aerostar's rear-wheel drive is capable of handling heavier payloads and pulling larger trailers, and that simply adds up to more overall versatility. When you consider the multi-purpose role a compact is often asked to fulfill, you can see why Ford was reluctant to enter the market with front-wheel drive. Ultimately, such a system is only acceptable when buyers are willing to limit their options. And that's literally the case with T115, since it's not available with Aerostar's limited slip rear axle for those times when driving really gets tough. Significantly, GM also chose rear-wheel drive for its compact. In many cases, it's simply the only way to get the job done. But that brings up another important issue. If you don't know whether a prospect has been looking at another competitor, how can you present the most appropriate Aerostar features? To be more specific, should you slant your presentation towards Aerostar's Ford Tough functional capabilities, which would appeal more to truck buyers, or would it be better to concentrate on Aerostar's comfort, convenience, ride, and handling, which is what the passenger car end of the spectrum will want to hear about?
In this day and age, I wouldn't call it a truck. I would say the word truck doesn't really apply. It's more of a new, it's something, the word car and truck, neither one of them is exactly right.
More like a car, I think. Truck. Basically because of the size and the options, yeah.
The heart of this issue is whether Aerostar is a truck or a car. Since it was engineered by truck operations to meet the same rugged standards as Ford's full-size Econoline models, you might think the matter is closed. Aerostar does indeed have a lot in common with the new generation of Ford trucks, including engine and transmissions. If you have reason to think a prospect will be impressed by that heritage, then by all means discuss it early on. But statistically, the majority of your prospects will be interested in a people mover, and many of them can actually be turned off by the idea of driving a truck.
For me, the comfort. I don't want to feel like I'm driving a truck. You know, I want the comfort of a car.
That's especially true of women buyers who may be intimidated by an overzealous macho image. They're more likely to be impressed with Aerostar's driver ergonomics, the passenger room, the riding comfort provided by the gas piston suspension, and convenience options like the electronic command center. Of course, one of Chrysler's strongest selling points with their T115 is that it's also user-friendly. If you talk enough with Chrysler owners, you're bound to hear words like cute or pretty. Some have even been known to call their vehicle a magic wagon. Well, take heart. There's no reason not to talk about high-strength steel or payload ratings on Aerostar's all-welded body construction. That's especially true for vocational buyers or former full-size van owners, because that's their kind of language. But you can talk about all those features without labeling Aerostar as either a car or a truck. And in most cases, it won't make any difference to the buyer at all if you tailor your product presentation around their individual needs. And then follow it up with an effective demonstration drive. Remember, the compact van prospect is, by definition, looking for something different. And Aerostar is the only compact which wraps it all up in one package. You've got all of Chrysler's manners with all of GM's towing capability, payload, and functional advantages. And you can take either of them on head-to-head. If that begs the question, what took Ford so long? Here again, you can point to some important buyer benefits.
Me, I'm excited about it. I can't wait. I wish I didn't have to wait till June.
I think it's super. I just wish we could get it here fast enough for the customers. That's the only problem I'm having. We have a lot of people waiting for them, and the only problem is we just can't get them in time.
To the extent that other compact vans are slanted toward either former passenger car or truck owners, it was possible for those manufacturers to base their designs on more conventional vehicles. Ford was the only manufacturer which began with a clean sheet of paper, working from the ground up and the driver out. And that fact largely accounts for Aerostar's ability to represent the best of both worlds. Ford spent $750 million in Aerostar's design and nearly $300 million more completely rebuilding the St. Louis assembly plant for Aerostar production. Both design and manufacturing processes took advantage of the latest techniques in computer simulation and control, but some things simply could not be rushed. The end result is a design the customer is going to be comfortable with, long after everybody forgets who was first or last. Ford built Aerostar to lead the market for the next decade, and that's why it features thoughtful details like the easily removable rear seats, a flat load floor, a one-hand liftgate, and quality you can demonstrate right in the showroom in terms of fit and finish. Like the aerodynamic and ergonomic stories, which are uniquely yours to sell, Ford has established a solid reputation for quality, and we plan to enhance that image with Aerostar. As a matter of fact, Aerostar takes all these concepts one step further, but it still has to score the points the first time a prospect takes a closer look. To top everything off, Ford has also simplified the ordering process for Aerostar, so you can provide buyers with a more complete vehicle at a reasonable price. It's all part of a total marketing effort intended to make you more competitive in the compact market. But that may bring up another question in your own mind, even if it's not an issue among the buyers. And that is whether Aerostar's sales will come at the expense of other products in the Ford lineup. This is really only a problem for the other guys. In fact, because of Aerostar's difference in the marketplace, its greatest impact can only be on competitive sales. I think you'll see what I mean if you put yourself in the place of your counterparts up the street for a moment. If Chrysler salespeople can't make a sale with the T115, they'll have a tough time selling compact prospects on anything else. The people mover image they've established for T115 will make it difficult for buyers with that orientation to accept a full-size van. But the only other alternative is a more conventional passenger vehicle, like the K-car. Before those disappointed customers make that kind of compromise, they're going to shop around, and that means they'll drop into a Ford dealership. General Motors faces a problem of a different sort. Because their compact is so much like their full-size vans, they're going to have to work very hard to explain why the two cost just about the same. It would appear the previous full-size owner is being asked to give up a lot in terms of room and payload, but they're getting only a very marginal return in terms of creature comfort, maneuverability, and efficiency. There just isn't that much difference between the two, and a lot of passenger car owners aren't going to like either choice. As Ford salespeople, you have a distinct advantage. Aerostar is not only different from other compacts, it's also designed to fit logically between other Ford products. If a prospect can't be sold in a compact van, and you can find out why, chances are you've got something else in the lineup that will do the job for them. After all, Ford pioneered the van in the United States back in the 50s and 60s. There are a lot of reasons Econoline is now the best-selling full-size van in America. At the other end, you've got some of the best-selling station wagons as well. Together with Aerostar, that makes a team nobody else can match. We hope this review of Aerostar marketing issues has been helpful to you. By understanding how Aerostar fits in the broader scheme of things, you'll be better able to make its unique qualities work for you. And we hope you can hit the ground running in what should be an exciting new market opportunity. Thank you.